The first shove came without warning. The quiet black man stumbled forward, his leather briefcase nearly slipping from his hand as the two courthouse security guards boxed him in. His suede coat brushed the marble floor as he caught himself. Lawyers in sharp suits stopped mid-conversation. A woman clutched her pearls. A clerk paused mid-step, eyes widening. He straightened slowly, adjusting his glasses, his breathing calm despite the humiliation swirling around him. "I said," the first guard barked, louder this time. "This hallway is restricted. Staff only. You need to exit the building." The man blinked, eyes gentle. "I'm supposed to be here. You don't get to argue," the second guard snapped. "This court has had too many security breaches this month. I don't care what excuse you think you have." Another shove. Gasps broke out across the corridor. Lawyers in designer suits whispered behind manicured hands. "Is he lost? Why'd he come through this door?" Probably a defendant wandering outside the public area. But one voice broke above the rest, a snide, sharp tone from a man who always made himself heard. Marcus Hale. He strutted out from behind the metal detectors, draped in an $8,000 suit and a courtroom swagger that could be smelled before it was seen. A high-profile attorney, a man who loved the sound of his own voice, and a man who had already decided the quiet stranger's worth. "What's all this?" Marcus said with a chuckle. "Security wrestling with a trespasser? Let me guess. He thinks courtrooms are public playgrounds." People laughed nervously. The quiet man opened his mouth once more. "Sir, I have documentation." Marcus snorted. "Documentation? What, bail papers? A summons?" He stepped closer, whispering loudly enough for the hallway to hear. "Look, pal, defendants don't come through the judicial wing. Try the main lobby like everyone else." The guards gripped the stranger's arms. But the quiet man didn't resist. He simply stood, posture straight, eyes soft. Have you ever watched dignity get swallowed alive? Have you ever seen a human being shrink in a room full of people who decided he didn't belong before he even said his name? Because that's what this courthouse was. A hierarchy carved in stone. At the top, judges, senior attorneys, prosecutors. In the middle, clerks, paralegals, court reporters. At the bottom, defendants, janitors, anyone who didn't look important. And somewhere below even that, in the minds of men like Marcus, was the quiet black man now surrounded by guards. The metal detectors beeped again as more spectators filtered in. The high ceilings amplified every insult. The scent of cedar from polished benches mixed with the sterile tang of disinfectant. The digital docket screens glowed with the names of the wealthy and the damning. Marcus folded his arms theatrically. "Look, I don't know why people think they can just walk around back here. This is the judiciary wing. You need credentials." "I have them," the man said. Marcus smirked. "Then why are you shaking?" He wasn't, but humiliation has a way of making hands feel colder than they are. The older guard sighed impatiently. "Sir, we're escorting you out." "I have a meeting," the man said, voice quiet but firm. Marcus laughed. "With who? A public defender? They don't meet back here." The man's jaw tightened, not with anger, but with a sad, patient understanding. He'd seen men like Marcus before. He had been underestimated by men like Marcus before. He simply said, "With the court administrator." This triggered an explosion of disbelief in the corridor. "The court administrator?" One clerk whispered. "He must be lying," someone else muttered. "He doesn't look like he belongs here," another voice added. Marcus tossed his head back dramatically. "Oh, please. The administrator doesn't meet with walk-ins. And certainly not." Well, he gestured up and down at the man's simple attire. Not with people who show up dressed like that. The man wore a clean but modest coat, simple trousers, scuffed yet polished shoes. He looked like someone who didn't chase attention, someone who didn't try to impress anyone. And that was enough to mark him as lesser. Security began guiding him closer to the exit. Then the man finally said his name. "My name is Isaiah Brooks." No reaction, no recognition. Just a name that meant nothing to people who had already decided his worth. "But Marcus raised a hand. "Save it. We don't need a full speech from the trespassing defendant of the day." Isaiah's fingers tightened around his briefcase. Deep breath in, deep breath out. He whispered, "I have an appointment." Marcus leaned close, voice dripping arrogance. Not anymore. A ripple of laughter, and in that moment, between humiliation and injustice, between assumption and prejudice, something in Isaiah's expression changed. Not anger, not fear. Resolve. Quiet, steady, unbroken resolve. He reached into his coat pocket. The guards tensed instantly. "Hands where I can see them," the younger one barked. People gasped. Someone whispered, "Is he reaching for something?" Isaiah froze, then slowly lifted a folder, a plain black one, worn at the edges. "I'm supposed to deliver these documents today for verification," he said. Marcus snatched the folder out of his hand. "Let's see this important paperwork, then." He opened it roughly, then frowned. Judicial onboarding papers, background check clearance, confidentiality forms, a sealed letter from the State Judicial Council. Marcus blinked. "What is this?" Isaiah spoke calmly. "My appointment letter, signed 3 days ago." Marcus flipped through the papers, his smirk melting inch by inch. No, this must be a mistake. These are real forms, but this can't be." The older guard squinted. "Appointment for what?" Isaiah looked him in the eye. "For my judgeship." The hallway erupted. "Judgeship? He can't be a judge. Is this some kind of prank?" "No way. Impossible." Marcus went pale. He shook his head. "Judgeship? You? You expect anyone to believe that? What judge walks in through the back door alone, dressed like that?" Isaiah didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because just then, a door at the end of the judicial wing swung open, and out stepped the court administrator herself, Eleanor West, a stern woman in her late 50s with steel-gray hair and a presence that commanded silence with a breath. She scanned the corridor. Her eyes landed on the security guards, then Marcus, then Isaiah, and her face changed instantly. "Judge Brooks," she called out. The entire hallway froze solid. Every head turned. Marcus choked on his breath. Security stiffened. Isaiah straightened. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor rushed forward, completely bypassing Marcus and the guards, and took Isaiah's hand in both of hers. "My deepest apologies," she said. "Your chambers are ready. We weren't expecting you through this entrance. You caught us by surprise." Marcus's knees nearly buckled. The guards went ghost white. Eleanor looked at them sharply. "Why is Judge Brooks being detained?" The younger guard stammered. We thought he didn't look. He came in alone." Eleanor cut him off with a voice cold as marble. "You thought wrong." She turned to Marcus. "And you? What exactly do you think you were doing?" Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Isaiah watched it all quietly, his humiliation now replaced by a deep, unspoken ache. Because this wasn't the first time he'd been judged before speaking. It was simply the first time the courtroom witnessed it. Eleanor gave a tight, respectful nod to Isaiah. "Judge Brooks," she said, "it would be an honor to escort you to your chambers." As she led him toward the judicial wing doors, Isaiah walked past Marcus with silent grace. No gloating, no malice, no smirk. Just dignity, the kind that makes arrogant men shrink. And in the hallway behind him, chaos erupted, because the quiet black man they tried to remove was the judge who now outranked them all. Whispers chased Isaiah down the corridor like shadows. He's the new judge? Why didn't anyone know? Security put their hands on him. God. Marcus Hale is finished. But Isaiah didn't look back. He followed Eleanor down the quiet judicial hallway, lined with portraits of judges whose legacies stared down like silent spectators. The scent of polished oak replaced the cold sterility of the public wing. The walls here were soundproofed, the carpet thick. The lights glowed warmer, softer. The air itself knew this was where power lived. Eleanor walked briskly, speaking over her shoulder. "Judge Brooks, again, I sincerely apologize for what happened out there. We had an internal communication lapse. Your profile was processed late in the system. We should have had security briefed." Isaiah gave her a small, polite nod. "It's all right." "It isn't," she said, "and it won't happen again." They reached a tall mahogany door. His chambers. She pushed it open. The room inside was pristine and dignified. Bookshelves lining the walls, a polished desk near a window overlooking the courthouse courtyard, a leather chair, new legal texts neatly arranged. A nameplate wrapped in tissue paper sat on the desk. "Judge Isaiah Brooks, Superior Court of Hawthorne County." It didn't feel real. Not yet. Eleanor watched him carefully. "If there's anything missing, anything you need, just say the word." Isaiah set his briefcase down gently. "Thank you," he said. "This is more than enough." She smiled warmly, then excused herself to handle urgent matters in the hallway, which was administrator speak for, going to chew out every guard and attorney involved. When the door closed, Isaiah exhaled, long and slow. His shoulders relaxed, the tension melting away like frost in sunlight. He placed his hand on the desk. Smooth, cold, solid. Everything he worked for. Everything they said he would never have. And for a moment, just a moment, he let his fists clench, jaw tightening, not from anger, but from memory. Because it wasn't the first time he'd been mistaken for the defendant, or the assistant, or the janitor, or the man who didn't look like he belonged. His mind drifted back to the nights studying law in dimly lit libraries after 12-hour shifts as a legal clerk, to the professors who questioned if he had the discipline for this career, to the landlord who refused to rent to him until he showed a pay stub, to the girlfriend who left because dreams don't pay bills fast enough, to the day his mother cried when he passed the bar, to the day his older brother didn't show up to graduation, to the countless courtrooms where people talked over him, underestimated him, doubted him, until he opened his mouth. His path wasn't paved. It was clawed into the ground with blood, sweat, and quiet perseverance. He brushed his fingers across the nameplate again. "Judge Brooks," he inhaled, and knocked. At his own door, he didn't know why. But it grounded him, somehow. Then the door swung open, and he was face to face with Marcus Hale. Gone was the smug grin. Gone was the swagger. Marcus now stood stiffly, sweat gathering at his temples, eyes wide and terrified, like someone waiting for a sentencing. "Judge Brooks," he blurted, voice cracking. I came to apologize." Isaiah didn't move. "For what?" Marcus swallowed hard. for the misunderstanding earlier. If I had known that I was a judge, Isaiah finished for him. Marcus froze. The truth sat heavy in the air between them. I would have treated you with respect, Marcus stammered. Isaiah's gaze sharpened. Why? He asked softly. Because of the title, the robe, the chambers? Marcus couldn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was the answer. Isaiah stepped aside slightly, still blocking most of the doorway. Respect shouldn't depend on rank. Marcus nodded rapidly. You're absolutely right, sir. Absolutely. I was out of line, I admit it. Please, I hope we can move past it. He extended a shaky hand. Isaiah looked down at it. A long, quiet beat. Then he shook his head. Respect, Isaiah said softly, is not something you demand afterward like a refund. It's how you choose to treat people when you think no one important is watching. Marcus paled further. Please, Judge Brooks, I'm asking for leniency. My reputation, my career. It was never your career on the line, Isaiah said. It was your character. Marcus's throat bobbed. He looked like he might cry, more out of self-preservation than regret. You'll have to answer to the court administrator, Isaiah said. Not to me. Marcus deflated like air escaping a balloon. He stepped back, nodding numbly. Yes, sir. He turned and walked away. Isaiah closed the door gently. Silence filled the chambers again. He rubbed his face, grounding himself, then straightened his shoulders and took his seat behind the desk. A few minutes later, there was another knock. This one timid, respectful. Come in, Isaiah said. A young clerk peeked in, clutching a stack of files like they were fragile treasure. Her eyes were wide with admiration. Judge Brooks? Hi. Hello. Sorry, I'm Mia. I'm your assigned clerk. I'll be helping you with case schedules, documentation, motions, syncing with the public defender's office, everything. She stepped inside, placed the stack of case files neatly on his desk, then blurted, I saw what happened earlier at security. I just wanted to say, I'm glad you didn't let that stop you. Isaiah gave her a small smile. Thank you, Mia. She hesitated. Your first case starts in 20 minutes. Courtroom 4B. Isaiah nodded, rising. Let's go. As they walked down the judicial hallway, the building hummed with whispers, news spreading like wildfire. Judge Brooks? That was him? At security? He handled it so calmly. Did you see Marcus's face? About time this court had a judge like him. But more than whispers, there were stares. Some curious, some impressed, some ashamed. At the end of the hallway stood the heavy wooden doors of courtroom 4B. Mia pushed them open. And inside, the packed courtroom fell silent. Every face shifted toward Isaiah. Every clerk, attorney, defendant, and spectator rose to their feet. Isaiah felt the moment settle on him like a cloak. He walked to the bench, sat, and the gavel waited under his hand. In the gallery, Marcus sat stiffly among the attorneys assigned to observe, face pale, eyes lowered. The bailiff raised his voice. All rise for the Honorable Judge Isaiah Brooks. Isaiah inhaled slowly, exhaled, and lifted the gavel. Everything he had fought through, the disbelief, the humiliation, the doubt, the years of being overlooked, had led him here. He struck the gavel once. Court, he said, voice steady and resonant through the chamber, is now in session. For a moment, the courtroom breathed as one. Every eye locked onto Isaiah, some with curiosity, some with skepticism, others with dawning respect. The quiet black man they had watched being shoved around that morning now sat higher than anyone in the room. Higher than the attorneys who whispered about him. Higher than the guards who doubted him. Higher than the man who mocked him. And as Isaiah surveyed the courtroom, something inside him settled. This was where he belonged. Mia sat beside him at the clerk's desk, hands fluttering nervously over her papers. "Your Honor," she whispered, "your first case is a motion hearing. Marcus Hale is—" Isaiah raised a hand gently to stop her. Because he already saw Marcus. The arrogant attorney who had shoved him aside, who had held the folder like trash, now sat in the front row, looking like a man awaiting execution. His eyes were round, his face gray, his shoulders slumped. He couldn't even meet Isaiah's gaze. The humiliation had already begun to flip. But Isaiah wasn't here for vengeance. He opened the first file. "Call the case." The bailiff announced it. A young defendant, a nervous black teenager, stood at the table, flanked by a weary public defender. Isaiah listened carefully, leaning forward, his brow creasing as he scanned the papers. Then something caught his eye. A date, a timestamp, a conflict. Isaiah looked up. "Counselor, when did your client file this motion?" The public defender swallowed. "3 days ago, Your Honor." "And when did the prosecution receive it?" Silence. The assistant district attorney shuffled papers. Finally, "Yesterday morning, Your Honor. We only saw it at—" Isaiah tapped the file. "This motion is time-sensitive by statute. The prosecution had insufficient time for review. Both sides deserve adequate preparation." The ADA blinked. So you're continuing the case?" "No," Isaiah said calmly. "I am granting the motion in favor of the defendant." Gasps. The ADA froze. "Your Honor, on what grounds?" Isaiah lifted the file, pointing. "On the grounds that justice delayed by administrative neglect cannot be used to punish the accused. The timeline is clear. The burden of delay is not on this young man." A ripple of whispers surged through the gallery. The teenager blinked. His public defender's face softened, relief washing over her like warmth. Isaiah continued, voice firm but gentle. "Next case." For the next hour, he moved through hearings with steady confidence, sharp analysis, clear decisions, empathy laced with discipline. Attorneys adjusted their postures. Defendants straightened. Even the skeptical onlookers began to murmur, "He's good. Really good. Sharp mind. He actually reads everything." Finally, someone fair. But as the docket wound down, a knock came at the courtroom door. The bailiff approached the bench. "Your Honor, Court Administrator West is here. She wishes to address the morning's incident." Isaiah nodded. "Bring her in." Eleanor West swept into the courtroom like a storm contained in pearls and navy blue silk. She approached the bench, turned to face the gallery, and raised her chin. "Before these proceedings continue," she announced, "there is a matter of grave importance to address." Marcus swallowed visibly. Eleanor gestured toward the balcony. 2 security guards were escorted in. Heads lowered, uniforms immaculate, but pride shattered. The same guards who had grabbed Isaiah, shoved him, dismissed him. The gallery shifted in stunned silence. "As many of you witnessed," Eleanor said, "Judge Isaiah Brooks, an esteemed member of this court, was wrongfully detained in this building earlier today." Gasps, shame, wide eyes. She continued, voice hard as polished stone. "This incident occurred because of assumptions, because of prejudice, and because certain individuals believed they could identify a man's worth by his clothes or the color of his skin." Marcus visibly shrank. The guards closed their eyes. Eleanor didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "In this court," she said, "we serve justice, and justice begins with accountability." The younger guard spoke first. "Judge Brooks, sir. I am deeply sorry. I had no idea." Isaiah leaned forward. "What would you have done differently if you had known?" The guard faltered. I would have treated you with respect, sir." Isaiah's brow lowered, not in anger, but in a quiet, piercing sadness. "Why would respect require knowing my title?" he asked softly. The guard could not answer. Isaiah looked between the two guards. "You saw a black man alone in a restricted hallway," he said, voice low but powerful. "And you assumed trespass instead of possibility, threat instead of purpose." Silence hit the courtroom like a stone. Isaiah continued, "You are responsible for protecting everyone in this building. That includes people who don't look like you expect, people who aren't dressed the part, people who aren't privileged." His gaze softened. "Your apology is accepted, but growth must follow." The guards nodded quickly, tears pricking their eyes. Then Marcus rose shakily. "Judge Brooks," he croaked, I need to speak as well." The court watched, breath held. Marcus stared at the floor. "I humiliated you, mocked you, judged you before you even spoke. I am deeply ashamed." Isaiah didn't interrupt. Marcus's voice shook. "I am ready to accept whatever disciplinary action the court decides." Isaiah studied him. A long, quiet moment. He could destroy Marcus right here. One sentence could strip him of everything. But Isaiah Brooks was not a man shaped by vengeance. He lifted his gaze toward the gallery. "Mr. Hale," Isaiah said, "do you understand why your actions were harmful?" Marcus swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." "Explain." Marcus looked up at him, eyes wet, voice cracking. "Because I only respected what I recognized. Power, title, clothing. I didn't look at you as a person. I didn't give you the dignity you deserved." The courtroom held its breath. Isaiah nodded slowly. "Remember that," he said. "Every defendant, every witness, every stranger who walks through these doors carries a story you do not know. Treat them all with respect, not because of who they are." He paused. "But because of who you choose to be." Marcus exhaled shakily, a broken man rebuilt by truth. Eleanor stepped forward again. "Thank you, Judge Brooks. We will handle additional administrative matters." The guards and Marcus were escorted out, not in chains, not in humiliation, but in reflection. Isaiah watched them go, then turned back to his courtroom. "Next case," he said softly. But no one moved. Not yet, because something in the atmosphere had changed. Something subtle, powerful, essential. Respect, not demanded, earned. Later, when the courtroom emptied and the chatter softened into echoes down the hall, Isaiah remained seated at the bench. He rested his hands on the gavel, feeling the weight of it, not as a weapon, but as a promise. Mia approached timidly. "You were incredible today, Your Honor." Isaiah smiled faintly. Today was a beginning. "May I ask something?" she said. "Why didn't you punish them? Marcus, the guards. You could have." Isaiah looked out across the empty rows of benches, sunlight spilling in from the high windows. "Because," he said quietly, "justice isn't about humiliation." "What is it about then?" she asked. Isaiah folded his hands. "It's about truth," he said, "and giving people a chance to rise when they fall short, even when they didn't give you that same chance." Mia nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Isaiah closed the case files on his desk. Then he spoke the final thought of the day. quiet, profound, and landing like a seed in the soil of the world. People look at a quiet black man and decide he's harmless, or powerless, or invisible. He stood, lifting his briefcase. But they forget, he whispered, that silence is where strength grows, that humility does not mean weakness, that you can't judge a person's worth by the doorway they walked through. He rested a hand on the bench, his bench. Some labels, he murmured, are too small for the lives they try to contain. He turned, heading toward his chambers. And sometimes, he added softly, the man they tried to remove is the one they needed all along. The lights dimmed, the door closed, and Judge Isaiah Brooks walked forward into a world that finally saw him, not because of his title, but because he had made them listen.